Hey y'all, I hope you're doing well today. So today's message has been inspired by several different things, and I have put a new song in the in my music playlist for y'all. The playlist is called For the Warriors, and it's by Queen, and that was part of my inspiration for today's message. So the title of today's message is Why You Are the Champion. Why You Are the Champion. And I'll go ahead and give you a hint. It's because you operate in the land of the living. And it's really true. And we're going to see how and why this statement is true as we work through the message. So I hope you're doing well today, and I hope that I hope you're enjoying this holiday if you're watching this the day that it's published on YouTube, July 4th. So okay. So first, to get into the message, we're going to review how we get trapped. And when I say trapped, I mean like spiritually trapped, right? With somebody who has bad intentions, someone who is deceptive, right? And we're only going to spend just a smidgen of time here. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it's important to build the message. It's like that whole Bible verse that I love, that wisdom is the principal thing, but with all you're getting, get understanding. That context there is really important. So we're going to be building the context so that we can digest and fully comprehend the message here, right? This is what I have to do for myself when I'm making my own notes. It all has to come together for me before I feel good about presenting it to you all. So, okay. So how we get trapped starts with typically when we're in a vulnerable state, right? And this can look many different ways. This is why sometimes when you're learning about how somebody who uses others, how they operate, we can miss this part or not relate to it, and therefore not identify what we've been through accurately, because it can look so many different ways. Typically, it's from being wounded by someone important to us that makes us vulnerable. But it can also be if we are neglected in some way by somebody important, like a parent figure, somebody who is in a very important role in our life, a sibling, anybody that we're close to, a very close friend, a partner, a spouse, whatever it is, right? So it's not just about being hurt by them, but it can also be, we can be put into this state of vulnerability from being neglected. And so what happens is we are then exploited. We are then in the perfect position to be exploited if we're not careful, right? And I'm going to give you an example. So, you know, a parent figure who is very selfish may not teach their child basic self-care type things, like as they're coming into, you know, puberty, for example, you know, how to really do your hair nice and your makeup, and, you know, making sure, you know, hey, it's important that, you know, you wear deodorant, and, you know, oh, it's time to start shaving, or just the basic kind of stuff. And it's sad that children have to some children have to figure this out on their own. And see, the thing is, this is obvious to their peers, because their peers have been taught by their elders. And it's not just about self-care, that's just an example, but it's just in general how to do life, and how to fit in with society, and, you know, how to belong within a community, and, you know, all these different aspects of just maturing as a person grows, right? Narcissistic parents are not going to spend the time to teach a child that, so they're fumbling. It's like they're having to just figure it out on their own. It's like they don't know what they don't know, but their peers can see it. It's just so obvious. So there's an example of being neglected, right? So how a narcissist will exploit this, I want you to understand that these are basic human needs. If you look at wildlife, it's you can see how the parents of a young, it could be a lion cub or just any kind of wild animal. They're going to teach them certain things. It's so interesting. And so this is just a natural, should be a natural thing. But because humans have this other layer of conscious awareness, right? They're not just living in that flow of being totally guided moment by moment by the divine. You know, this is where humans have that other layer where they can exercise judgment and free will and act from selfish motives. And this manifests sometimes by neglecting their children. And so a narcissistic person may see this in you, that you were neglected in some way or another, and exploit that by being overly giving. This can come through like in the form of guidance, because they know you didn't have any guidance, and maybe you don't really need it as an adult, but that's still a part of your childhood that was neglected. So they may just, you know, always make you feel like, hey, you know, like they're in the know about stuff. Like, hey, let me tell you about giving you advice, you know, about how to invest your money, or how to build a successful future by going through a certain school and getting a degree to get a career. In other words, they're just always the one that has to be very resourceful for you. They want to be like your number one and only resource in your life. You see what I mean? They create this scenario. Well, they exploit. If you have experienced this form of neglect, they will exploit that. And if you haven't, sometimes they'll try to, you know, isolate you and create a scenario where you have a need now, and they just try to fill that role and be everything. They try to be just everything to you, because then it creates a dependence on them. You see what I'm saying? And this manifests in so many different ways. I'm sweating so bad, y'all. I don't know if you can see on the video, it's really hot today. I've mentioned having to do my videos outside. I've got my windows down, I got my hair going. I don't want it to be too loud, but I'm gonna have to figure out a different solution. I love to be outside. So just bear with me as I turn the air up here and there. But I got my water too, so maybe I should drink some water. Okay, so here's another way. These controlling people, it's weird. It's like they want to possess you, you know, and it's like they're doing so by they know that they can't just literally put you in this physical prison, so they have to create this prison structure within your own mind where you submit and you go into this prison willingly, but it's willingly unconsciously too. You don't realize what you're doing. That's the whole psychological manipulation and abuse, right, that they do. But another way, and I have seen this next example firsthand. If a person is was, say, maybe the child of someone who totally just, I think the term is doted on their sibling and made their sibling the golden child and always criticized them. And in this particular instance, this parent actually, they were a single parent, and they actually took out credit cards in their child's name and ruined their credit and everything, and they didn't even know. And so it's just a bad situation. So this child was a victim of a narcissistic parent, obviously, right? So they suffered depression big time. And what happened was their very best friend, which reminds me of the term frenemy, right? Their very best friend tried to fill that role of helping them cope by bringing them alcohol and pills, stuff like that. And so that was keeping them in bondage to that person as the one who's supplying what they need to cope. And it was very destructive. And you know, I didn't know this person very long, but I tried to open their eyes to this situation. And I think they were starting to open their eyes there towards the end. But Yes, this happens. This happens. These people will exploit. When I say vulnerable, if you're in a lot of pain from being treated horribly, and you're working on trying to get through that pain, but maybe you're just kind of stuck for a little while coping, then this that anything that we have a need for, like an addiction to, or anything like that, a narcissist is going to swoop in and be like, I gotcha, and watching you self-destruct. This is the really evil part of it. Watching you self-destruct is I believe a big part of what plays into boosting their ego. So it's just really bad. Yeah, and so they can hook you that way, right? Drugs, alcohol, pills, and or it can be attention. If you were totally ignored as a child, they can just give you an overabundance of validation and attention, which are basic human needs, especially in child development as you're growing, right? When you're in childhood, guidance, anything. So when you start to wake up to what's going on, this is a critical moment for a controlling person. Okay, and so at this point, they, and this is from experience and observation, at that point, when they see that you're starting to figure it out, they can either pretend to be working on themselves or projecting onto you to try and keep you down here, okay, or both. And I just encourage you to always remember to look for measurable changes. If a person's claiming to work on themselves, you'll be able to tell. And so now this is a point, if someone especially starts to project onto you a lot because you're waking up, it's kind of like I mentioned before, it's like you come to a point in a toxic situation where your shield comes up, and then they do whatever they have to do to manipulate, and then you start to lower it down, and that's a critical point, okay? So you may start to lower that shield when they're saying like, hey, I know I really need to work on myself, and you're like, okay, good, that can lower your shield. Or it may be something where they start to put you down, and then of course you feel like you're not even worthy to have a shield up, and you're questioning yourself. So all these different tactics, it's a critical point when they see that you're waking up, and it's also a critical point for you, okay? So I encourage you to look through the Bible and find a lot of verses that will validate what we're talking about today, specifically with regards to how it's the awareness of wrongdoing that matters. So when these controlling people project onto you, what they do a lot of times is they point out your flaws, and they do so in a manner that's you feel ashamed and embarrassed, like, oh, I did get emotional there for a minute, or I did say something I regret, or whatever it is. That may be true, right? Because we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And they exploit that. The fact that you have that level of humility to admit that you're not perfect, they exploit that. So when they start to project onto you your flaws and point them out, okay? Because they're very focused on that. Then that's when you really need to get strong in yourself, and you do so by understanding, and again, there's Bible verses that reinforce this, that it comes down to a person's awareness of doing wrong, right? That matters. Because what they're doing is they're exploiting oftentimes our unawareness. So James chapter 4 verse 17 says, so whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. So you have to be what's the phrase? It's called the age of accountability. But I don't really know that it's an age. I think there's just layers and layers, and we've talked about this before in my videos, where the psyche has layers of conscious awareness, and then you have a subconscious and an unconscious, and that's been proven. I feel like theorized throughout the field of psychology, because all we can do, we didn't create the mind, God created our minds, but all we can do is theorize and test our theories, and it seems to be a very valid point based on observation, years and years of observation and experience, human experience that we, and I know you can, everybody, if they're honest, can admit that there's behaviors and paradigms that were formed through conditioning, or early childhood conditioning, and things that are formed in our unconscious awareness, and we can act from that unknowingly. And so these controllers exploit that in you, okay? It's like they're doing bad things on purpose and knowingly, and you may have made some mistakes and said some bad things or whatever unknowingly, but they're trying to put you on a level playing field, and it's not the same. It's not the same when you do something when you know you're doing wrong and when you don't know you're doing wrong. And the Bible talks all about that, and I encourage you to look into that, okay? Remember that Jesus said on the cross, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." That's the key. That's the difference, okay? So you are a champion because when you know better, you do better, right? You want to learn and grow genuinely. I know many of you can relate to this. I have asked many times, like, please tell me, do you see anything with me that I'm unaware of? Or, if you could give me some kind of constructive criticism, what would it be? Like, we want to learn and grow and see our blind spots and the part of us that's manifesting from our unconscious part of our psyche, right? We intentionally seek out those unconscious parts of ourselves, those blind spots. So some people know better and do the selfish thing anyways, and they're totally not concerned with how destructive it is to others. And furthermore, they can know it's destructive to others and benefit from that. So evil, right? So whenever someone projects onto you, I want you to tune in here inside, okay? You can look stoic, whatever it takes in the moment. I want you to confirm within yourself, okay? Because there's no need to try and defend externally. That's only going to play into their game, right? You just become stoic and confirm within yourself in that moment that if you did in fact make a mistake, that it wasn't intentional. And I want you to recall the reality of those layers of our consciousness, okay? This has been documented and discussed for years and years in the field of psychology for a reason, okay? Validate yourself in that way. Now, we know that lying is intentional. That's not an unconscious behavior. That's intentional. So this is where you have to look at a tree is known by the fruit it bears, okay? When you're trying to differentiate yourself from others, and that's going to help you to deflect that projection when it comes at you, okay? So I want you to rest in the fact that, number one, God knows our hearts and our motives and our intentions. He knows it. He sees all. Number two, if you did react because you were poked and provoked, and you were intentionally thrust into a chaotic situation that was created like a soap opera and all this stuff, I want you to understand that, hey, God may have worked through you in that moment to convict this other person's conscience. Maybe they needed that. And so that's what's cool too, because again, we're described as vessels in the Bible. And yeah, we have layers to our conscious awareness, but God's going to work through us. God, that's another thing that's really cool about the Bible. Like it has demonstrated again and again how God can use anybody. He can use anybody, but he uses everything for the good of who? Those who love him. That's who it all works out for. Those who love God. Okay? So there's no need to carry guilt and shame, right? We're not perfect. Accept it and understand that there's layers of conscious awareness. Number three, rest in the fact that when you know better, you do better. You know this, right? I know this about myself. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 17 says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. Okay, so just keep that in your heart too. We're going to talk more about it. So with wisdom being the principal thing, we can clearly see that what used to keep us in bondage to a controller is no longer even existent. As we are having more and more come up from our unconsciousness to our conscious awareness, then it's workable. Then we can kill that part of our self. We can lay this down at the foot of Christ. However, whatever lens you want to apply to it, right? I'm never going to assert my truths as, they need to be your truths. That I totally respect free will. That's part of the divine design. So feel free to apply anything I say to your own discernment and perception, and apply your own lens to it. Okay, I still hope that just whatever your beliefs are, that you can still get something very beneficial for yourself through my message. So as these things come through to our conscious awareness about ourselves, we're trying to become better. And so these parts, these old parts of us die off. We don't have to stay bound to them forever. We don't. And so just like that Bible verse, 2 Corinthians 5:17, right? The old has gone, the new is here. So again, it's wisdom that's the key here, and understanding, right? We don't have to stay in bondage to a controller through their guilt tripping and shaming, because that, anything that we've done from our unconscious awareness and we brought it up and we fixed it, that part of us is no longer existent. Okay, that part of us has died as we are evolving into this new creation in Christ. You see what I'm saying? So we have the choice to be free, to get free. We have that choice when we don't need anything, like no addictions to coping. We don't have a need to medicate old wounds. We've put that to rest. We are free when we aren't convicted by shaming, blaming, guilting, because we are steadfast in our truth that we have never had bad intentions, which is proven by the fact that when we know better, we do better. We are in continual creation mode. Sorry, y'all, I couldn't read my writing. Sometimes it's coming to me so fast, I'm trying to jot it down. What is that word? We are in continual creation mode, continual growth mode. We are a new man in Christ. Man, woman, person in Christ. Because, why? Why are we new? Because we don't run from the life-death life cycle. We see change as good. Okay, so when a controlling person is projecting and attacking us, that understand their motive is to keep us under their control, because they're selfish. They want to possess us. That's why they do it. Okay, but when they're attacking us, just view them as attacking the old man, the old you, right? If they really are, a lot of times they're not even pointing anything valid out anyways, but if they happen to hit on something that, like, man, I did say that, or whatever, I did do that, or I shouldn't have done that, in the past. If they are hitting on that, don't let that be the hook that keeps you in bondage. Understand that they're attacking the old man back there. Okay, it's in the past. The unconscious man, the unconscious part of you. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with a statement that came to me that's hopefully going to stick with you. I'm going to encourage you, don't drag the dead along behind you. The dead you, the old you, and someone who's just trying to latch onto you and they're dead inside, right? They don't have that living spirit, that light inside of them. Don't drag all that with you. That's too heavy. Life is not meant for you to live that way, okay? Jesus says in Matthew chapter 11, verses 29 through 30, as soon as I get on my iPad here. Says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. We are instructed to learn, okay? For I am meek and lowly in heart. See, we have humility. It takes that to learn and grow. And you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. When we welcome and embrace the life-death-life cycle, we're free. We're free. It is a way of living that feels light and wonderful. Okay, so I just want you to remember that you are among the living. Okay, so don't let your doubts or your needs keep you tethered to the land of the dead. So I hope this message has been beneficial to you. I hope that it has given you a lot of things to think about today. And I just thank you so much for coming along. And I hope that you have a beautiful day. And I'll see you again very soon.